It started on what seemed like a regular Wednesday evening. I came home from work, tired as usual, expecting a quiet night with my wife, Lisa. But the moment I walked into the living room, I could tell something was off. She was sitting on the couch, hands folded neatly in her lap, a manila envelope resting beside her. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice flat. I sat down across from her, feeling a sudden weight in my chest. "What's up?" She took a deep breath, then slid the envelope across the coffee table. "I filed for divorce." Just like that. No preamble, no warning. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but not for the reason you might think. See, our marriage had been dead for years. At some point, Lisa stopped being my wife and became more of a highly critical roommate who never had a kind word to say. I suspected she was cheating, though I never had concrete proof. But now, staring at those papers, I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was relieved. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," I shrugged. "If that's what you want." Lisa narrowed her eyes. I could see it in her expression. She expected me to beg, to get angry, to fight for her. Instead, I leaned back into the couch and exhaled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Well, I guess that was easier than I thought. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door. That's when I noticed she was dressed up, hair curled, makeup flawless, wearing that dress, the one she never wore around me anymore. "Hot date?" I asked, smirking. She hesitated for half a second before rolling her eyes. "Not that it's any of your business, but yes." I laughed. I actually laughed. This was hilarious. The way she said it, she clearly thought this was her big moment, that she was dealing the final blow. In her mind, she was the prize, and I was supposed to be heartbroken that she was leaving me. "Have fun," I said, standing up and heading to the kitchen. "Don't wait up." She scoffed, but I could feel her confusion. I wasn't reacting the way she expected, and that was just the beginning. The realization hit her over the next few days. Lisa acted like she had won some grand prize. She barely came home, probably staying over at her new man's place. I didn't care. I started going to the gym, eating better, and catching up with old friends. The stress that had been suffocating me for years disappeared overnight. But then something changed. It started with small things. She would come home looking unsettled, like she expected something to be different. She'd glance around the house like she was looking for something. At first, I couldn't figure it out. Then it hit me. She expected chaos. She thought she'd walk in and see me drowning in sadness, missing her, begging her to come back. But instead, she walked in to see a clean house, a man who was thriving, and absolutely no trace of her stuff anywhere. That's when I saw it. The first flicker of doubt in her eyes. Lisa had convinced herself that she was the one upgrading, that she'd leave me behind in misery while she rode off into the sunset with her new guy. But what happens when your backup plan isn't as perfect as you thought? I was about to find out. For the first few days after Lisa dropped the divorce bombshell, I didn't hear much from her. She wasn't home, and honestly, I didn't care where she was. My life had just dramatically improved overnight. No more walking on eggshells around her mood swings. No more forced small talk with a woman who had clearly checked out of our marriage a long time ago. No more feeling like I was constantly failing someone who didn't even respect me. I focused on myself. I started going to the gym every morning before work. At night, I actually cooked proper meals for myself. Steak, grilled veggies, salmon, real food instead of the microwave meals Lisa always complained about, but never actually helped me replace. I slept better than I had in years. It was like I had been unknowingly living with a weight around my neck, and now that it was gone, I could breathe. But then Lisa started acting weird. It started subtly. She'd come home to grab something from the house, and instead of ignoring me like I expected, she'd linger. One night, she walked into the kitchen while I was eating and just stood there, watching me for a moment before speaking. "You're cooking?" she asked, sounding almost offended. I looked at my plate, then back at her. "Yeah." She scoffed, shaking her head. "Since when do you cook?" "You hate cooking." I smirked. No, I just hated cooking when I had to deal with a wife who acted like everything I did was wrong. She stiffened. I could see the irritation flash in her eyes. I had never talked to her like that before. But why would I hold back now? She made it clear she wanted out. "Whatever," she muttered, grabbing a few things from the counter before leaving again. But I could tell something was eating at her. I wasn't breaking down like she thought I would. I wasn't calling or texting her, begging for another chance. I wasn't moping around or drowning my sorrows in beer. In her mind, she was supposed to be the one moving on while I was supposed to be devastated. But instead, I was thriving. And something about that bothered her. A week passed, and things got even stranger. One night, she called me out of nowhere. "Hey," she said casually, like she hadn't just walked out of our marriage. "Just checking in. How have you been?" I almost laughed. Checking in. Since when did she check in on me? "Good," I said. "Better than ever, actually." There was a pause, a long, awkward pause. Then she cleared her throat. "Oh, well, that's good." She sounded disappointed, like she was expecting a different answer. I decided to push it. "How about you?" She hesitated. "Yeah, things are okay." Liar. I could hear it in her voice. She wasn't happy. I didn't press her for details. But I had my suspicions. I had no doubt that she was with him, the guy she had probably been cheating with. But something clearly wasn't going as planned. Maybe he wasn't as exciting as she thought he'd be. Maybe reality was starting to set in. Maybe she was realizing that being single in your mid-30s wasn't as fun as it looked on Instagram. I didn't care. "Glad to hear it," I said. "Anyway, I have plans, so I've got to go." That was a lie. I didn't have plans. I just wanted to end the conversation before she could fish for more information. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else. But in the end, she just said, "Oh, okay. Talk later." Talk later? No, we won't. Over the next few days, I started noticing something else. Lisa was coming home more often. At first, it was just to grab random things. But then she started making excuses to hang around. One night, she came back at almost 10 p.m., claiming she forgot some shoes she needed. But instead of leaving right away, she plopped down on the couch, watching me like she was waiting for me to say something. I didn't. Another night, she walked in while I was on a call with a friend and hovered near me, clearly eavesdropping. I made sure to laugh loudly, joking about how much better I felt these days. She didn't like that. The more confident I became, the more unsettled she looked. She was regretting it. I could see it happening in real time, but she was too proud to admit it, too stubborn to say she'd made a mistake. That's when I realized something. She thought she was the one in control of the situation. She thought she could leave me, enjoy her new life, and then have the option to come back if she wanted. She was dead wrong. I was about to make sure of it. Lisa always thought she was in control. It was just the way she operated. She had this ability to manipulate situations, to twist things in her favor. to always make it seem like she was the one making the choices. And for years, I let her believe that. I let her think she was the mastermind of our marriage, that I was just some guy along for the ride, always adjusting to her moods, always walking on eggshells to keep the peace. But now I had nothing left to lose. And the moment I stopped playing by her rules, she started to fall apart. She came by the house more frequently, always under some weak excuse. One night, she claimed she needed to pick up some mail. Another time, she said she left her favorite shampoo in the bathroom. But I knew the real reason. She wasn't checking in on her things. She was checking on me. She wanted to see how I was doing without her. And the answer? Better than ever. I made sure of that. The house was spotless every time she showed up. Something she never thought I was capable of doing without her nagging. The fridge was stocked with fresh food. The gym bag by the door made it clear I was taking care of myself. I even left a book on self-improvement on the coffee table, something she never thought I'd have the discipline to read. Every little detail, every little change was a silent reminder. I didn't need her. I never did. And it was driving her insane. One night, she showed up while I was watching TV. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, staring at me like I had committed some crime. "What's up?" I asked casually, barely looking away from the screen. She sighed dramatically. "Can we talk?" That was new. Lisa never wanted to talk. She wanted to lecture, to dictate, to control. I muted the TV and turned to her. "Sure." She hesitated, and for the first time, I saw something I never thought I'd see in her. Doubt. I don't get it," she finally said. I raised an eyebrow. "Don't get what?" She gestured vaguely at me. You're acting like you're completely fine, like none of this is affecting you." I shrugged. "Because it's not." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She was waiting for me to break, waiting for some crack in my composure, some sign that I was secretly miserable. But I wasn't. I had never been better. "You don't even seem sad," she muttered. I laughed, actually laughed. "But Lisa, why would I be sad? You wanted a divorce, you got it. What's there to be upset about?" She stared at me, and in that moment, I saw it. The flicker of panic in her eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In her mind, I was supposed to be begging her to come back. She was supposed to be the one holding all the power. But instead, I was indifferent. Worse than that, I was thriving. And for the first time, I think it hit her. She might have made a mistake. Lisa wasn't stupid. She knew what she had done. She had gambled, thinking that leaving me would be an upgrade. That her new guy, whoever he was going to give her the excitement she thought she was missing. But the cracks were already starting to show. One night, she slipped up. "I mean, you don't even care that I'm moving on," she blurted out. And I caught it. Not I moved on. I'm moving on. Present tense. That meant only one thing. Things weren't going as planned. I leaned back on the couch, smirking. "Lisa, what you do with your life isn't my problem anymore." She flinched. She actually flinched. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the upper hand. And I wasn't done yet. I had a feeling Lisa's fantasy wasn't working out the way she expected. But I didn't know just how bad it had gotten until the cracks started turning into full-on fractures. At first, it was the little things. Her dropping by more often, lingering in the house for longer than necessary, asking questions she had no reason to ask. But then came the real red flag. She started making excuses to stay longer. One night, she showed up claiming she forgot an important document she needed for work. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded and let her dig through her old desk. But instead of grabbing it and leaving, she just stood there, flipping through old papers that clearly had no importance. I could feel her watching me, but I didn't acknowledge it. Then came the next visit. This time, it was too late at night to be casual. It was almost 11 p.m. when she knocked on the door, and I'll be honest, I was surprised she even came by at that hour. "Something wrong?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She hesitated for a moment before sighing dramatically. "Can I come in?" I knew exactly what was happening. The fantasy was falling apart. I stepped aside, letting her in, and watched as she plopped onto the couch like she still lived there. I didn't say a word. I just sat across from her, waiting. It didn't take long for her to start talking. "So, you're really okay with all of this?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. I shrugged. "Yeah. Why wouldn't I be?" She shifted uncomfortably, and I knew what this was. She was testing the waters, trying to gauge how much control she still had. I wasn't giving her any. "So, she trailed off, staring at her hands. "You seeing anyone?" There it was. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. She was spiraling, and now she was trying to figure out if I had moved on before she could even think about crawling back. I leaned back, smirking. "Why do you ask?" She blinked. I mean, just curious. Curious. Number desperate, and I could see why. I didn't press her, but I didn't have to. Lisa was never the type to keep things bottled up, and after a few minutes of awkward silence, she finally blurted it out. I don't know if I made the right choice." I kept my face completely blank. Inside, I was grinning like an idiot. "Oh," I said, playing dumb. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I thought things would be different." There it was, the admission. I decided to poke the wound a little. "Different how?" She shifted uncomfortably. I thought, I don't know, that maybe I needed a fresh start, something new. "But it's not." She stopped herself, shaking her head. She didn't want to say it. She didn't want to admit that she thought she was trading up, only to realize that she was the downgrade. That whatever guy she ran off to wasn't the fairy tale she expected, that the grass wasn't greener. I let her stew in it for a moment before delivering the final nail in the coffin. "Well, Lisa," I said, standing up, "that's not really my problem anymore, is it?" She stared at me, her mouth opening slightly before snapping shut. She wasn't used to this version of me. She was used to the passive, people-pleasing husband who put up with everything. That guy was gone, and she was just starting to realize it. Lisa had spent years believing she had me wrapped around her finger. She thought she could walk away, start a new life, and that I'd be sitting here waiting, either to beg for her return or to crumble without her. But reality? Reality was a lot harsher than her fantasies. After that night, when she all but admitted she wasn't happy with her new life, I thought she'd keep her distance, maybe out of pride, maybe out of sheer embarrassment. But no. She started coming around even more. It wasn't just to pick up her things anymore. One Friday evening, I had just gotten home from the gym, feeling refreshed, when I heard a knock at the door. I checked the time, 9:45 p.m., too late for casual visits. I already knew who it was before I even opened the door. And sure enough, there stood Lisa, looking like she'd been through hell. Her hair was messy, like she'd been running her hands through it in frustration. Her expression was a mixture of regret, confusion, and if I wasn't mistaken, a hint of panic. I leaned against the doorway, crossing my arms. Lisa. She hesitated, shifting on her feet. Can I come in? I almost said no, but I was curious. She had never looked like this before. This wasn't the confident, arrogant woman who thought she was the prize. This was someone who had just realized she had lost the game she'd started. I stepped aside. She walked in, but she didn't sit. She just stood there, as if she didn't know what to do with herself. I waited, let her squirm in silence, let her feel the weight of what she had done. And finally, she exhaled sharply and turned to me. I need to talk to you, she said. I raised an eyebrow. About? She swallowed. Everything. She wasn't beating around the bush anymore. Whatever had happened in her new life was bad enough to break through that thick layer of arrogance she'd built up over the years. I nodded toward the couch. Go ahead. She hesitated before sitting down, hands clasped together. I thought leaving was the right thing, she started. I really did. I thought I needed something different. I said nothing, just watched. She took a deep breath. But I was wrong. The cracks finally shattered. I leaned forward slightly, tilting my head. Oh? What changed? She let out a humorless laugh. Do you really want to know? I shrugged. Sure. And then she broke. I thought he was different, she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. I thought, God, I was so stupid. I thought he actually cared about me. Bingo. I didn't say a word, just let her spill. He was fun at first, she continued, her voice shaking slightly. He made me feel alive, like I was doing something exciting. But then I started seeing the truth. She scoffed, shaking her head. Turns out I wasn't special. I was just another woman to him. He started pulling away the moment things got serious. And when I confronted him about it, he told me he never wanted anything long-term. I barely held back a smirk. Lisa, who thought she was trading up, who thought she had found something better, had been played. She clenched her fists. And the worst part? The second I realized it wasn't going anywhere, I looked around and saw that I had nothing left. She glanced at me then, her eyes searching for something. You moved on so fast. It's like I was never even important to you. I laughed, actually laughed. Lisa, I said, shaking my head. You weren't. Her face paled. That was the moment it hit her. All this time, she thought she had some sort of hold on me, that even if she left, there'd always be a part of me that wanted her back. But the truth? I had checked out of this marriage long before she did. She just never noticed. Lisa sat there, frozen, as my words settled over her like a heavyweight. The confident, smug woman who once believed she had outplayed me was now just a ghost of herself. She wasn't in control anymore. She wasn't the one calling the shots. And worst of all, she was starting to understand that she never really was. For the first time in her life, she had no backup plan, no safety net, no one to fall back on. The man she left me for had discarded her the moment she became inconvenient, and now she was standing in front of me, hoping that the man she had treated like an afterthought was still available to pick up the pieces. But I wasn't. She looked down, her fingers gripping the hem of her sweater. I know I messed up, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I don't deserve anything from you after what I did. I stayed silent. Let her stew in it. Let her sit in the mess she created. Her eyes flickered up to meet mine, and for the first time in years, I saw something in them that had been missing for a long time. Fear. Not the kind of fear that comes from danger, but the kind that comes from realizing you've made a mistake you can't undo. I miss you, she admitted, her voice cracking. I miss us. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a real, genuine, from-the-gut laugh. Lisa, I said, shaking my head, there is no us. Not anymore. She flinched, like she hadn't expected me to be so final. And I could see it. The panic, the realization that I wasn't just playing hard to get. I wasn't trying to make her beg. I was done. She had nowhere left to go. I could tell she was grasping at straws now, desperately searching for a way to undo the damage. And that's when she did something that truly surprised me. She reached out and grabbed my hand. Lisa, who had spent the last few years treating me like a burden, who had walked out without a second thought, was now touching me like she wanted to fix something that was already broken. I didn't pull away. I just stared at her. You don't have to forgive me, she whispered. But could we at least try? Maybe start over? I tilted my head. Start over? She nodded quickly, as if she had suddenly convinced herself this was a real possibility. Yeah, we were good together once, right? Maybe if we... No. One word. That's all it took to shatter whatever hope she had left. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She blinked rapidly, like she was trying to process what was happening. I leaned forward slightly, making sure she heard me loud and clear. Lisa, I spent years feeling like I was never enough for you, like nothing I did mattered. You left because you thought there was something better out there. You chose this. She swallowed hard, her grip on my hand tightening. I know, but no, I cut her off. You don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to walk away, realize you made a mistake, and come back like nothing happened. Tears welled in her eyes. But I love you. I smirked. No, you don't. You just miss having someone who actually cared about you. And with that, I finally pulled my hand away. She broke. Right there, in my living room. The woman who once thought she was untouchable, who believed she could do better without me, who walked away without a care in the world, completely fell apart. But I didn't care. This wasn't my problem anymore, and I wasn't about to let her make it mine again. Lisa didn't leave right away. She just sat there, staring at the floor, her breath coming in shallow, uneven bursts. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The weight of my words was still sinking in for her, and I could tell she was struggling to process the reality she had created. She thought she was the one who had ended this relationship, that the divorce was her decision. But now she was starting to realize that I was the one who had truly moved on, and there was nothing she could do about it. I don't know what to do, she finally whispered. That part wasn't an act. It wasn't manipulation. It was the truth. Lisa had always been the type of person who had a plan, a backup option, a way to escape consequences when things didn't go her way. But this was different. She had burned a bridge she thought she could rebuild anytime she wanted. Now she was standing on the edge of it, looking at the flames and realizing there was no way back. I sighed, leaning back against the couch, watching her. You should probably go. Her head snapped up. What? I gestured toward the door. Lisa, I think we've said everything there is to say. You made your decision, and now you have to live with it. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but I didn't react. I had spent years trying to make her happy, years trying to be enough for her, and all it had gotten me was an empty marriage and a wife who had been ready to throw it all away without a second thought. So no, I wasn't about to comfort her now. She swallowed, standing up on shaky legs. So that's it? You're just done? I tilted my head, giving her a sad smile. Lisa, I was done the moment you walked out that door. Her face crumpled. I had never seen her look so completely lost, but I wasn't going to save her. I stood up and walked to the front door, opening it. Goodbye, Lisa. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen. Then finally, she let out a shaky breath and walked past me, out into the night. I watched as she hesitated on the porch, as if she wanted to turn back, as if she thought there was still a chance to change my mind. But when she looked at me and saw the complete lack of hesitation on my face, she knew she had already lost. And so, without another word, she turned and walked away. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and for the first time in years, I felt completely, unbelievably free. The silence after Lisa left was different. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. I stood in my living room for a moment, listening to the absence of drama, of tension, of that constant feeling of never being enough. And for the first time in years, I smiled. A real, honest, weight off my shoulders smile. Lisa was gone, for good this time. And I wasn't sad. Not even a little. The days that followed felt like a fresh start. No more second-guessing myself. No more dreading the sound of the front door opening, wondering what kind of mood she'd be in. No more feeling like a background character in my own life. I was free. I focused on myself in a way I never had before. The gym became more than just a distraction. It became a place where I rebuilt myself. I reconnected with old friends, started saying yes to things I'd always put off. I even took a weekend trip by myself, something Lisa would have laughed at before. And it was incredible. One night, a few weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. I messed up. I wish I could take it all back. Lisa. I didn't even bother responding. I deleted the message, set my phone down, and went back to living my life.